So in part one, talked about the specs that we're going to be using. This is i7 7700. Going to be using this Dell Optiplex 3050, and we're popping it in this Corsair case. It's going to be a little bit unconventional, untraditional, because we're using an Optiplex 7050 motherboard, which pretty much was only designed for the Optiplex case. But in part one, we kind of mocked it up and saw that it was gonna work. Not only that, I am gonna water cool this because, well, why not, with a cheap, sketchy Chinese water cooling kit that I bought years ago and did a video on. And not sure what I'm gonna use this computer for yet. Maybe I'll figure it out by the end of this video series, but let's get moving to today's project at hand. So today's project at hand is this. So I took it out of the computer, and what I'm actually going to do now is I want to figure out the front panel header IO. Now, these Optiplexes, when you swap them, you always get that front IO error, front panel error, and all that stuff. And we saw in part one, by actually taking the original power button, and I kind of hacked this up a little bit, talk about that in a second. You pop it in, and everything works fine, and you get no errors. The only key thing you have to put in is, number one, make sure you have your keyboard plugged in, but you also have to have your rear fan, which this is a cheap one that I got from I think an old cooler somewhere, and it works fine, no issues. So today I'm going to be working on this power switch, and there's two ways to do it. So let's go over the easy way, and then let's go over the cheap, budget friendly, cost saving kind of ghetto way. So let's start with that. So if you see right here, you have the 5-pin 2 and then there's 1, and then there's a blank one right over here, and that's actually been traditional since Dell's been using these Optiplexes. I haven't seen it change and vary. I've seen it 390, 7010, so maybe that's just one common thing they've kept up into this model. I don't know anything past 6th, 7th gen Intels with the Dells, but I know for this one, they keep using the 5-pin. So I got online, and you could get these on eBay. There's a website, Harbin Repair, and through eBay, you get them through China, which might actually be easier for some people depending on the part of the world you live in, and they sell these little adapters. Whoops. The way this one works is, it has a little arrow, and I know the GoPro has poor zoom, and the little arrow goes towards the direction where it has the blank pin right over here. So we're going to match it right over here. It's going to go in just like that, and I want to see if this works. From what I understand, it does work, but let's confirm it. So if it works, then I shouldn't have that front panel, or I think it's front IO, the front panel error. I know if you jump the 2 pins, you're going to get that front panel error, and I don't want no errors. I kind of want to do this the right way on that. So let's go ahead, let's pop the power switch button, which is going to be right over here. Check, done. Let's fire it up, and let's see if we got any errors. Let's go ahead, let's power this up. All right, power button works. Boots right up, no errors, we're good to go. Sweet. And the noise is actually this fan. I think it's hitting something. Yep, that's the, yeah, fan is cheap and bad. So that works. Now let's kind of show probably the traditional, unconventional, easier way to do it. So let's unplug this, and this is the route I'm actually going to go. It's just going to be easier and just cleaner. So what if you don't have one of those? Well, then you're going to actually need the original power button for this, and I was just kind of playing around with this. So if you have the original power button, the only wires you got to worry about is the black and yellow. So I actually cut them and spliced them, so yellow to yellow, just kind of cut it and just left it bare, and the same thing black to black. That way I can show you how to just kind of jump it and bypass it. So if you run this in right over here, you'll end up tucking this wire away somewhere in your case. If you just take the black and yellow, and let's see if I could, all right. All you need to do is jump them together. There you go. It runs, it boots up, no errors. So you're probably saying, okay, that's great. So how do I make it work? So now the way you would make it work is that you would take your power switch, your little jumper right over here that you got from your case. You would take these apart, splice them, and you can either solder them into these together just like this, and that way when you push the button, it'll actually jump them and turn it on. That's one way to do it. Or you could get some male pin versions of these and just attach them to here and just kind of plug them in. That would probably be the way I would go. I would just get the male versions of these, solder the male to over here, the wire part of the male to here, have the male sticking out. That way it goes into the female part over here, and that would work. And that way you could just disconnect a lot easier. But even if you just solder these into this, I mean, you could just take this whole piece out. But then if later on you decide to get like a real motherboard for this, yeah, you're gonna have to figure that out again. So if you're gonna be doing this swap, you're gonna have to get these. These are real cheap on Amazon. I mean, on eBay, if you don't have them, they're about $2, $5, just depending where you get them from. So they're cheap enough where you could get one and kind of make it work. Or if not, like I said, you can spend $10 on this. Honestly, I had a bunch of these lying around from previous projects, so that's just the way I decided to go. But if I didn't have these, I probably just would have went this route. So now let's go to the next part, making this officially work on the case. Okay, so we learned that this top mount and this top mount lines up. And that works pretty good because that kind of gives us an idea to set the motherboard in place where we need it. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that in. And that way it's in place and ready to do what we need to do next. So nothing else lines up, and I kind of talked about doing the rubber standoffs, but I want to make this thing a little more secure. So the way I'm going to do it is I took off one of the motherboard screws, whatever you call these things. Took one of them off, kind of measured it, and the drill bit that it comes out to is either a 7/32 or a 3/32, if I'm not mistaken. So the 7/32 is like right there, but once you take away metal, you can't put it back. So I'm probably going to go with the smaller one, and if we need to, we could round it out just to make it slightly bigger. And it'll kind of self-tap its own screws and its own thread in there, so I think that should work fine. If you're feeling lucky and you're feeling good, you could just take the drill and just kind of do that and hope for the best, which I don't recommend doing that, especially if you were drinking the night before. Might be a little jittery and unsteady. What I usually do is take some type of paint, or in this case, my wife's nail polish. Yeah, sure. Try explaining to her why I have her nail polish in my garage. And then what that does is, it's green, you can see it. I'm just going to mark up all the holes, and I'll probably just put as many as I can successfully drill. It's okay if you get it on the motherboard. I mean, this stuff is not going to do anything to it. Like, I got a little extra around the side. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're good there. Let me wipe off this motherboard. So now that I have the mark, I'm just going to go in the middle, do a punch. That kind of gives me my pilot so it don't dance around. Nice and easy. It's a little loose with that 1/8. I'm going to go back to the 764 for the others. Alright, so it actually came out okay. Not the best. So I'm off on this one. I'm off on that one. It's kind of no big deal because I have these two, which is extra support. I should have centered it better, but it's kind of rushing. So that's not my fault. Take your time. Measure twice, cut once. But what I'll probably do is just put a piece of black tape on it just to make sure it doesn't have any contact over here. But the biggest thing is I really wanted support over here, and here, which I got. And this thing is a lot firmer. So that should be good. So I went from 2 to 4. I have contact in the middle, contact over here, and I still have support over here and it's not touching. So I'm happy with that. Alright, so I think we're good to go. We got the power button stuff figured out. We got the mounting situation figured out. That's good. Our case. I got my two radiators, gonna go with a 240 and a 120, which should work fine. Our cooler, power supply, gonna be using these up here fans, the graphics card, which I'll tell you which one it is as soon as I figure it out and open it up, because I haven't used that one in a long time, so I don't really remember what it is. So I have everything that I'm ready to use, tubing, maybe some RGB, who knows. So I'm gonna switch to a montage. This is gonna take a little bit, and at the end, hopefully it should look good. So let's get to work. Well, another successful build to say the least, but there was some problems, and these problems are actually my fault. No fault of doing the swap. The swap was very easy, but I made some mistakes. And let's talk about what I did. First, you may notice that this is a GTX 1070, which is a great card, but I initially wanted a water cooling card, and I had one. It was a 7970 that I bought on eBay a couple of years ago, and I actually have bought two of them, and they came with the EK water block on them. But unfortunately, while trying to deal with this water cooling setup and emptying it and doing some other things, trial and error, I dropped the card, and as you can see, yeah, she didn't survive. Now, one of the other issues was I actually had a second one with the water block and everything. That's right, I had two. But what happened, one of the seals went bad. I think it was probably right around over here. The card got wet during testing, and well, the card got fried. And unfortunately, that's on me, because I should have tested that water block just to kind of make sure that it wasn't leaking. I cleaned everything out, but I guess the O-rings dried up, as I've had this card for about 3 years, and I would say 3 years, plus however long the owner had it. So yeah, fried another card. And for the very attentive viewer, if you notice, my power button switch slash connector that I was using right over here for the power on, power off, well, that's not there either. What happened with that? I was kind of test fitting, putting the radiator in and out, and during that, I actually bent this connector, and I bent it enough where I think I broke one of the traces, where no matter if I use the factory button or the adapter, it won't work, and it's kind of unfortunate. Now, you still can turn the computer on, but what you need to do is you actually just need to press the power button right over here, as these computers cycle on by themselves. Pop that on. The only error you get is the front power or front pin error, whatever one it is. No fan errors, no nothing else, but that's fine. I do have other motherboards for this. I do have 3 more, as I bought this in a lot deal, but I'm not planning to flip this computer, and for what I'm going to be using it for, it's fine with me just hitting the power button for that. But unfortunately, should have paid more attention, and I broke it. But it's okay. And I know a couple of people are going to be talking about this, the whole red G-Skill memory. Well, what happened with that one? Well, my 4th memory stick, while pulling it out, I placed it down, didn't pay attention once again, and I dropped that. I guess I have the whole twinkle fingers thing going down really well today. Dropped the memory, went to put it back in, and the memory would not work. So I had to pop this in. It's all the same speed. They're 3000 or 3200 megahertz, I forget which one it is. Works fine, it's stable, gets the job done, except I have a G skill, but I still have at least 32 gigs of memory, so that's fine. Now, using this for gaming, it performs flawlessly. As we all know, the GTX 1070 is still a great card, capable of 1080p gaming. I mean, all my games that we played over here, I mean, way over 60 frames per second, 80s, 100s, just depending on the scene and what was going on, all high settings. So yeah, gaming is great on it. The i7 7700 works phenomenal. It's a great CPU, still got some beans years later, so definitely happy with that. So gaming on it is pretty good, but like I said, I wasn't really building this for a gaming PC to flip. And the question and the comment I get all the time is, why do this? It's such a waste. It's junk. Could have bought a whole new computer. Yeah, I got you. Number one, a lot of these parts were lying around. Number two, $20 for 4 motherboards with 4 M.2s is a really good deal. And these also have Windows 10 keys integrated into them, so that saves me money. So between the fact that I paid, breaking it down, $5 for a motherboard with an M.2 with a Windows 10 key, and then I only think I paid maybe $15 for the adapter and that little adapter over here, or splicing into the power button. I mean, realistically, I'm probably into this thing about $20-25 just for the motherboard, when a Z270 cost about $100 for a decent one, and maybe a little higher. Still a little on the pricey side on those motherboards, so it's actually a good option. And if you're able to get these OEM ones and you kind of want to trick it out a little bit and just kind of give it a little more life, this is something to do. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple. It's a great cost-saving option. And honestly, this is fun. I enjoy doing this type of stuff. I like modding things, making things work that weren't meant to work, and just kind of putting it together and showing you guys how I do it along the way. And it always seems like every time I'm recording, my neighbors decide to do their yard. So I do apologize for that noise. So comment down below and let me know your thoughts, opinions, questions, concerns, criticisms, as I love reading through the comments. I love responding to it. I definitely learn a lot, and you guys give me some great suggestions on new projects and things I could have done better. If you have any questions about this build, definitely shoot them down in the comment box. I like to respond, and I will actually explain things more in depth in case I missed anything. And if you have more questions on kind of how I put this together and kind of the planning, check out part 1 of this video where I kind of show you some of the adapters and some different ideas and mocking on it, and that might clarify it. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're not, and as always, we'll see what we come up with next.